Welcome to Crimson Guitars and welcome to another Saturday workshop video. This is where every Saturday I will take a look at a new tool, unbox something, review, fettle, basically play around in my workshop and bring you along with me. Now, today we have a very interesting something, and something that I've wanted to have in my life for a very, very long time, and that is a traditional Japanese hand plane. Now, this plane, I met the fantastic people from Niwaki at the Yandles woodworking show. This was the spring woodworking show. It's taken me a while to get to this point. And in fact, they did a short, I interviewed them a little bit on how to fettle and set up this plane. And because basically, Japanese planes do not come ready to work out of the box. You have to fettle them, you have to adjust them to suit your own personal preferences every time. It's part of the culture. For example, with Japanese saws, we all know and absolutely love them because they're amazing. But a traditional Japanese saw is sold by, I wanted to say sawyer, but that's not, that's the person who uses them. The saw maker, the blacksmith, whoever it was that does the metal work, they make the blade and then they sell that to the woodworker, and each master woodworker makes their own handle for that blade. Excuse me. And it's the same thing with a Japanese plane. They will come partially ready, partially made, and you've got to fit and adjust it to suit your particular work. Now, one of the main reasons for this is that they're made out of white oak, Japanese white oak. It's made out of wood. Wood moves, and as such, you don't know what is going to happen in between the chap who made it and 2, 3, 5, 10 years later, the person who buys it. So it's also fairly pragmatic. Anyhow, this video is me, having never done this before, taking a new Japanese plane from Niwaki and fettling it and learning as I go. And well, you're coming on the journey with me. Now, if you're interested in anything to do with Japanese tools, check out niwaki.com. I'm dropping the thing right now. Niwaki. It is niwaki.com, isn't it? Oh my goodness, I need to find the website again. Yes, top left, of course. Niwaki.com. Check them out. They're a fairly local company to myself, but they deliver everywhere, and they've got everything from fantastic chef's knives to axes. It's predominantly a garden based stuff as well, shears and ladders and lots of crazy things. But what we are interested in is the Japanese chisels, sharpening stones and knives, and obviously these planes. Now, if you, well, basically email them, say, hey, Ben sent me, and maybe they'll send us more stuff to review and look at and play with. Anyhow, if you're interested in seeing them, actually, they will almost definitely be at the next Yandles woodworking show, which is only a couple of weeks away from when I'm filming this. So September 2015. Anyhow, I'm going to go and actually the very first thing I'm going to do is basically unbox this, and then we're going to go upstairs and flatten the sole. Comes in a lovely little box and plastic. There's no other information. On the end, this is a 60mm, it's got a 60mm wide cut, I think that's it, 60mm. Just out of interest, actually. Let's have a quick look in the catalogue. Okay, it takes a 42mm shaving or a 54mm shaving. They're £60 or £70. And I want one of those hammers. Now, Let's get that out of there. Now, I'm just going to give you the brief overview as I understand it. I've watched a myriad of videos of people doing this and had a chat with the guys at Niwaki as well. So I don't think I'm going to screw this up too much. Obviously, you've got your blade, your chip breaker, and the body of the plane. And all of this geometry has been roughly cut. And of course, there's the pin there holding everything in place. Now I'm going to go and flatten the sole off now to give us something to work with. You could also sharpen the blade and chip breaker, come to think of it, first if you want. It makes no real difference. The whole point of a Japanese plane is you don't want the base to be perfectly flat at all points. What you really want is a contact point at the back, because obviously you pull. You want a contact point there, one just in front of the blade and one at the end. And that will give you well, less friction, and it's easier to cut, and it's the way they do it. So that's how I'm going to do it. And but in order to get that, I need to make sure there's no twists in the wood or anything like that. And in order to do that, I'm going to use a nice big flat surfacing plate we use upstairs in our tool making department, because we make guitar building tools. Now, you can also see what I'm talking about here. The blade, you can see how big a gap is between the mouth and the blade, and that is about 3 millimeters below, not quite 3 mil, 2 mil. 2 mil below the surface there. So it's nearly poking out, but it's not quite there. And we're going to have to hammer that quite hard in order to actually get a cut. If we weren't, if we didn't know that we had to fet all this, we just bang it and cause issues, because what would happen is that would put pressure on this area and cause that to bow back, and we really wouldn't want that. So with the blade in and under tension, I'm going to go away and flatten this. I'm going to be using a flat surfacing plate with sandpaper on in order to level the base of this plane. I'm very lucky. I have this 70-kilogram lump of perfectly flat granite, and that's because we make luthiers tools and things here now. What you can do is use a 10 mil or more thick piece of floated glass. Anything thinner than that will flex, and you really don't want that. If you're trying to flatten something on something that is moving and is therefore not flat, you're going to have trouble. So 10 mil thick or more on something flat, and then you can stick sandpaper on there using spray adhesive, or carefully applied Pritt stick even works, although that will create some inconsistencies. As long as you spread it carefully, and you should be okay. An alternative is to use the masking tape trick that we use, but make sure that you put the tape, or the double-sided tape, something like that, evenly across the whole surface. Otherwise you will have lumps and bumps. Anyhow, I'm going to take this up and very rapidly flatten the surface of this plane. Forgive the noise upstairs, it was a little bit, well, it's a working workshop. There was a rock. There was an area here or there. Anyway, the whole thing was actually slightly twisted. So I flattened her down, and the end result is that we're going to scrape away that section and that section as well to give it just 3 points of contact. However, we're going to do that later. it is important to say that when you are flattening a wooden plane, or even for that matter a metal-bodied plane, leave it with the blade in and under tension, because that tension will translate into tension on the body, even with a metal-bodied plane. But that is now perfectly flat, and we can move on. Now what I'm going to do is knock the blade out, and to do that, this is a prototype fretting hammer. Anyway, to do that, just hit it on the bevel on the back, and the shock will push that out a little bit. And it's actually quite important, I've been told, because I've never really done this before, to keep a hold of the chip breaker, because what you can do is if you loosen everything by banging it and you're not holding onto the chip breaker, the entire blade can fall through and hit the deck, or the chip breaker will fall through and hit the deck, and you just don't want that. Now I felt it give way there. So that's pulled out and we're sorted. Now this has come fairly flat. It's ground on the inside, as is the case with normal Japanese planes and chisels. Because it's very, very hard steel. In this case, it's a two-part steel. There's a very hard laminate on the edge, where your point is, and then a softer steel here to allow for shock resistance and all that. But because it is so hard, they've relief ground it, so you're only actually sharpening a very small portion of it. Now, I'm going to have to adjust this and do a bit of work on the blade before I start trying to fit it. And the chip breaker. I'm not sure if you can see. There we go. Now the chip breaker is supposed to be perfectly flat. Oh, this is actually rather difficult to focus on. Anyway, you can hear that. That chip breaker is not perfectly flat. It is rocking, so we need to sort that out. Now this is rocking, and basically that side there isn't down enough, or that side's up too much, possibly. What we need to do is either grind the back corner of this, you can see how that wedges up, or hammer it down a little bit, because after all, this is all they've done. The front is nice and flat. That's been ground flat. This back area, that's been ground flat, and it just hasn't, they're not quite perfect. So, well, what you can do is just get a little vise and hammer the soft metal, and this hammer is actually a little bit too small for this. And then let's see. Now another option is to grind. So the bit that it's rocking on, we could file that away, which is something that people tend to think is a little bit more safe, shall we say. Let me just remind myself where it is. And then you just file away a section until it fits. And actually, that's done it. It was simple. There's no more rocking anymore. Okay, so these planes are obviously from Niwaki, but they are made by a chap or a company called Takakatsu in Sanjo. And whoever that company is, or particular chap, they have come mirror sharp already. It's not quite sharp enough to shave, really, although that did actually take a hair there, but it's mirror shiny on both surfaces. Now, frankly, I think this probably was sharp enough to shave when it shipped. It is just that, you know, being open to the air will blunt any chisel or plane. So basically, I think we're lucky in whoever has made this has done a particularly good job of preparing it already. So while the body isn't ready to use, the blade actually pretty much is. Now, just because I'm a stickler and I love sharpening, or at least I love using sharp tools, I'm going to have a go. And I am actually starting on my 4000 grit Kingstone because it really doesn't need much else. If you're interested in a tutorial on how to actually sharpen, I'm doing a full series, or hopefully by the time you've seen this, have done a full series on a masterclass on sharpening. Oh my goodness, this is going to be beautiful. So I'm just finessing the edge. This blade is so solid and big, I can just tell it's going to be amazing. I'm off the stones now and just run her over on my strop using some green honing paste. And this is beautiful. The really, really hard steel at the edge has come up with a fantastic cutting edge. You could split hairs with that. This is as it came. You can see where it's darker, and that is where the back of the blade there is resting on the wood, which means it's not actually touching in the body anywhere else. And it is our job to take that down. Basically, there's actually a rather large rock here. I'm going to try and give you a better angle. See how much that's rocking? So I need to scrape or chisel that away. Now what I'm going to use is this, which is this is a metal scraper. It looks like a chisel, but it's actually got a square end, or a squared off end, shall we say. And if you sharpen this down, so the end is actually nice and square, it works as a scraper. And you basically scrape away the high spots where there's colour, just like so, very slowly and very carefully. And then you put your blade back in and tap it. Okay, now you want to scrape this away until your blade, the front of your blade, the pointy end, is just about to go through with a light tap. So basically, with a little bit more pressure, you'd be able to get it to go out. The other things are, you very well might have to cut away material in here. Now, for example, with this one, there's actually a ledge there. So this bit is deeper, and that bit there is not quite so deep, and it might be binding on the edge of your blade. You do not want this to be too loose. You don't want your blade to fall all the way through, because that would be catastrophic. The other thing to be aware of is that your blade wants to be sitting in there square, and that currently isn't. That blade is closer to the front or to the sole of the plane on that edge, that corner, than it is at that corner. Now, I could sort that out with a few judicious taps of my beautiful David Barron chisel hammer. I'm not sure if this is sacrilegious or not, but I love this tool. Check out davidbarronfurniture.co.uk .co.uk. Anyway, he's awesome. And funnily enough, he makes traditional European pattern woodworking planes out of wood. Anyway, a digression. So basically, we need to fettle this and start pushing it out so that our blade can actually be used as a blade. Now, one thing I'm noticing is here, I'm going to need to chisel that little bit of wood away so that to allow the plane. It's actually stopping because of that part. So again, hit your plane on this bevel at the back until you hear the sound change, and start fettling. Yeah, there's a big difference. So this is a very narrow chisel. This is one of my lovely Ashley Isles, and yeah, there's a gap. I mean, there's a large shape there that needs to be removed. And we'll slowly take that down, put it back in, and keep on going. Actually, just removing that meant that the blade is now sitting in a lot more square. So we're going to work on this and yeah, scrape away really. Now, you can, on the back of your blade, put graphite or something like that, or camellia oil is a very good thing. And I've lost my camellia oil applicator, so I'm just going to put it on with my finger. Put a bit of oil on the back of your blade. Bang her in. And you can see where it's touching. And every single time you scrape away where you can see, the amount that it touches should get bigger and bigger and bigger until it's touching all along the surface. Now, the very important thing is, does it sound like I know what I'm talking about? Remember, this is the very first time I've ever done this, so I'm learning at the same time as you are. It could all go catastrophically wrong. Now, what you don't want to do is take out a giant chisel. Again, Ashley Isles, I love this thing. The scraper is much, much finer. Trying to flatten that with a chisel, if I clamped this down, I probably could do it, but the danger of digging in and taking away far too much material is just too great. I wouldn't even trust myself to do it. The scraper is really the way forward. And this is what we've ended up with. It's important not to take too much out because you really don't want your blade to be protruding all the way out at this point. I've got this touching almost everywhere, and the blade is really too close. I would like to get this flatter, but it's just not going to happen without making the whole thing too wide. But you know, in this case, this has actually required a lot less work than I was expecting. Anyhow, now I had it in my dogs while we did a bit of work on that. Now what we need to do is put it back together. So there's there we go. So there's tension, the correct amount of tension on the wood, but I don't want my blade sticking out yet. Yeah, I've got it so close without actually wanting to. All right, Now what we need to do is put this in a vise and scrape away, leaving our 3 high spots. One at the front, one in front of the blade, and one at the toe. One at the toe and one at the heel. There we go. I'm just gonna draw myself a couple of lines, and I don't want to go beyond these. Now, there are different tools and different methods that one could use to do this. Frankly, I just want to use a scraper, a cabinet scraper. And we're just removing a small amount of material. It's not extreme. I need to sharpen this one actually. And same here, although you see I don't want to hit my blade because I've just sharpened that. Now the Japanese actually have a plane that they use, or a scraper plane of sorts, that they use sideways. I've got a 0.05 mil gap and it stops at the foot. No, that's the front. It stops at the toe. It stops just in front of the mouth of the plane, and there's a gap there as well. I could possibly make it bigger, and in fact I am going to do just that. But basically, apparently, this is all that we need. So I'll just, I really need to sharpen this scraper. Anyway. I think it's actually time to set some wood in my vise and set the plane up to actually try and use it. This is going to be fun. Basically, very gently, it's a case of, I tend to use my fingers, so I'll feel where the blade is and adjust it accordingly. Okay, if it goes too far out, you hit the base, and with a little bit of work, you can get a perfect cut. It is undeniable that we need, that one needs practice to set up a wooden bodied plane. And this blade isn't quite going straight. Crikey, that feels weird. That's taking too big a cut. The other thing is that this has got a fairly wide mouth. The way that this particular one has been cut has given it a fairly wide mouth. Now, I would like to see a finer mouth than that, but this is just the way it goes. I am not getting perfect shavings, and I think that is my fault. I'm going to go away and play with this for a while and see what we can do. Right, I've done some fettling, I've done some playing around. and I'm not able to get the well, one, my board isn't quite flat yet. I'm not getting perfect shavings yet. You know, some of them are. Well, how does one hold this plane? But that is, you know, respectable. That is, you know, not perfect, but good. Now, I am going to play around with this. Actually, that surface is, wow. Yeah. There's some more fettling. I had to play around with the inside wall of one side. It was trying to push one corner of the blade out a little bit. And that's really, I am now more, I'm more invested in this plane than I would have been if it had just arrived in a box ready to use. And it's making, well, you can see the ripples in this rippled sycamore. That's quite awesome. I think I can definitely get it to cut better. And all that's going to take is a little bit more time. And I'm going to get much faster at setting the cut. One of my luthiers, Tom, uses English-style wooden planes a lot, and or Krenov style, actually, come to think of it. And he absolutely loves them. And you know, it doesn't take very long at all for him to set them up and get working. And that cut, I don't know, it's working with a wooden plane. It's rather lovely. It brings you closer to the work, I suppose, in a very strange way. I kind of almost sound, I don't know, weird. There's a lump of metal when you're using a metal plane between you and the wood. When you're using a wooden plane, you've got a thin, razor-sharp sliver of metal. This just feels effortless, actually. Once I've figured out how to hold it and practiced a little bit, I suspect I'm going to be using this a lot more than my number 4, for example. The problem is, and this is a problem, my wife watches these, and she has probably for the last 2 or 3 minutes been shouting at the screen going, "No, Ben, you are not going to buy an entire set of Japanese planes. I forbid it." But there you go. What can you do? There are going to be more of these appearing, emphatically. Now, once again, where is their catalogue? We've been playing around with it. It's over here. Here we go. Once again, please check out Niwaki. It's niwaki.com, Niwaki. Basically, any company, this is their catalogue. First page is saying RIP to their pet cat. Any company that does that deserves your business. And especially since the cat was called Uncle Shaba. So, basically, they're awesome chaps, and they sent me. They basically, at the last Yandles woodworking show, gave me this to do a video about and to see what I thought. And you know, on top of everything else they do, you know, few Japanese planes, hammers, saws, knives, and gardening bits and pieces. So yeah, check them out. And I now have to deal with the temptation of buying some of their is it Shapton? Yeah, it's the Shapton waterstones, whetstones. Oh my goodness. Thank you very, very much for watching. This has been another Saturday workshop video. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to be looking at next week. It's probably going to be an effects pedal or something. Because, well, basically my life is incredibly interesting. So thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video in the slightest, please click like, please click subscribe. And if you have any questions or probably more pertinently, an issue with something that I have said. If there's a better way of doing what I've just done, please give me a link to a better video, give me a comment. If you have any opinion whatsoever on this entire adventure that we're currently on, say it in the comments, because I like hearing from you and I like learning what you have to say. Anyway, have an awesome day. Please check out crimsonguitars.com and check out niwaki.com because them chaps is cool. Have a good day. Cheers.